So there's a cool saying that goes a little like this. It says, for evil to prevail, all that has to happen is for good man to do nothing. And yeah, I think that's what it is, for us to progress and move forwards positive ways, we've got to do something about it. And if we stand aside and let evil prevail, then bad things will prevail. I use that word evil. It's a part of the saying, but the truth is that it's just, I would say, negative consequences would come about from letting things happen. When we can have the inverse, we can have positive effects from doing something about it. And I think that's what I want to have a chat about today. And we're chatting about the housing market primarily here today. And so a conversation with a friend is going to be very beneficial. A conversation that's had versus a conversation that's not had. I mean, there's something there when you have a conversation, right? Obviously, it hits close to home with a lot of people. And I mean, that's what you want. You want the reality. And if it's hitting close to home, then you're probably touching on what really needs to happen in society. So first things first is a conversation about immigration. We don't want to talk about immigration much at all because a lot of us have friends and people we know in our society, maybe wherever, you got mates that you grew up in school with that are from different ethnicity. They weren't born in Australia. And so the conversation we should be having is not whether people with different skin color or talk differently are Australian. The conversation we need to have is about introducing new Australians into Australia. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about the next generation of people who come to Australia, setting some boundaries and saying, hey, maybe it's not fair for them to come and take homes or to take jobs when we need to do those things at this particular point in time. We need to have those homes and we need to step up and do those jobs that need doing. That's a tough conversation, as I said, because, as I said, there's a lot of good that can be done by welcoming someone who needs respite to Australia or by welcoming someone who has got some skills that can help Australia. But I'm just talking about introducing new Australians that might not have a positive effect on the Australian economy as it is. So conversations about that. That's a bleed-on effect. So I said there that immigration is affecting the amount of houses we have, but it's also affecting the jobs that we have. And I said we can expect people to stand up and take those jobs. And I mean it. That's the second conversation we need to have, is with the next generation coming through and our children and people who are studying now, is to have conversations with them saying, right now, we need more construction workers, we need more health professionals, and we need more teachers, and we need more people to step up and take responsibility in those roles. Now, there's lots of other jobs that need doing in Australia, but fundamentally, we need to have access to food, we need to have access to housing, we need to have access to education and access to healthcare. Fundamentally, those are the things we need to look at. And if we tell teenagers that they can be dancers over and over again, and they go to university and they spend 3 to 4 years studying acting and dancing and all these other things, then we're missing out on a good core group of people who could come through and spend time understanding and learning the skills that keep life moving. I'm not saying that they shouldn't pursue those things that they love, especially if they're really talented at it. But if you give them the opportunity to step up and say to a young man or a young woman that we need you, you have no idea how important that is for people's mental health, to be needed. And I think that's a conversation we need to start having with our young people, with our teenagers, even our children, to say, hey, it would be amazing if you were a builder, if you were a construction worker of some kind, if you worked in the healthcare sector, or if you didn't want those things, if you wanted to step up and teach skills to pass that on to the next generation about farming, about healthcare, about construction. then that's good too. They're all good. They're all important. But we need to have those conversations there, and probably not, I know it sounds tough, but not have the conversation where you say, you can do whatever you want to do. Maybe we should have the conversation where we say, look, son, right now, Australia needs you to step up and help. Yeah? That's one thing that the community could do. So the third thing I wanted to talk about is conversations with our politicians. A lot of times there's a small subsection of people who are very noisy about things. And the problem with this is that sometimes you can get this really loud voice, and it's not actually the voice of Australians in general. And that can be a dangerous thing when we let those voices get really, really, really noisy. And you know who's really, really noisy? Is rich politicians who own a lot of homes and are comfortable. And I know that's tough to swallow, but the people who are supposed to be standing up and helping the average punter, the average Aussie young person, doesn't really understand. And so if our voice is going under the voice of rich people who have the ear of other rich people, of politicians, then nothing happens. If we don't speak as a community out loud over and over and over and over again, nothing's going to happen. It's just the honest truth. People, honestly, the politicians will think that they know what's going on, that it's not as bad as it is. But it's not great. For the young Australian wanting to buy a home and not earning the income to meet the housing threshold, it's very difficult. And not only that, as the housing threshold goes up, so does the rent. And if you're not earning enough income to match the rent, much less match money you need to save to buy a home, then it's not easy. It's really not easy. And so to help as a community, starting to have those conversations directly with your politicians, huge benefit. So these conversations aren't easy to have, and often we just want to avoid them. It would just be easier if we could just pretend like everything was fine, and then everything would be fine. If we could trust that our politicians understood and heard our voice and would work with that. If we could trust that our children would grow up and make the right choices into the right path that would help Australia progress in the next generation. But the truth is that these things don't happen unless we have conversations about them. And that is all I wanted to talk about. That's it. Just the communication, the community's participation can be communication. I didn't mean for that to be any kind of spiritual or Zen or some kind of sage advice, but that came out pretty all right. That's what I'm trying to say, is that your biggest participation can be community communication. All right. Don't be too sensitive. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.